Oh, this is thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever FPL Banger show. So, my name is Siva, and I'm joined by Sam. We've been hosting a podcast, the FPL Banger Podcast, for about 2 years now. But this season, we decided we'd branch out into YouTube just to show you some of our stats and the things we look at. So, Sam, you and I, just a brief introduction. We've been, playing FPL for, I think, 10 years or so?
Yeah, 10 years. Long time.
Yeah, and I don't think, Sam, you would agree.
Seeing
we were
the
not...
rise and fall of United.
And the continued fall of United, and now the rise of Arsenal, and so Sam is a United fan. But Sam and I think, Sam, you'd agree, we do look at stats, but ultimately we are just two regular guys who play FPL a lot. We watch a lot of games, so what we're trying to offer here is sort of a combination between some stats, but a lot of eye tests and a lot of just general football knowledge.
Yep, that's right. That's us, FPL Banger.
Yeah, just the context, Sam and I are from Malaysia. I mean, we met in the UK, Sam. We were studying there, but we're from Malaysia. And, a good thing or a bad thing, but Malaysia, we get every single game live. So Sam and I fall into the bad habit of watching Burnley v Norwich at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Yeah.
That's mostly Siva, actually. I prefer sleep over. But yeah.
No, but you
Pretty
watch
much
Burnley
we
and
get to watch
Norwich, you
all
sleep
games,
better, man. So. All right.
That's true.
So today's topic, we're going to talk about team structure, 3 premiums versus 2 premiums, right? 3 premiums versus 2 premiums. That's the big topic that everyone wants to talk about. And so, let me open up what we've got here, right? Let's start off by looking at your team, Sam. And you've got a 3 premium structure going. And I'm just going to very quickly read out the names, and then you can sort of break it down, explain to us the picks that you have, right? You've got, for the podcast listeners, Sanchez in goal, Robertson, Ben White, Kieran Trippier, Ait Nouri, De Bruyne, Sancho, Salah, Bailey, Kane, and Jesus. I'll let you take it away, Sam.
Yeah, so some of these names are placeholders. For example, Ait Nouri could be any other 4.5 defender, But today we're going to spend more time talking about the actual structure of the team rather than individual players, I think. I'll start in goal. I went with Sanchez because I think he's the safest keeper option right now to start the season with. No doubt there will be plenty of good... I wouldn't say plenty, but there will be a standout 4.5 keeper that emerges. As the season progresses, you probably know in the first, 5 weeks, maybe more. Last year, it took Ramsdale... Leno had to lose his place, and then Ramsdale took it, and then, there we have it. We have our 4.5 standout keeper. So I'm waiting to see this year. There are a few options. I'm not going to go through them now. We'll save that for our actual preview podcast. But for now, Sanchez.
All right.
I've gone with Robertson over Trent. It's a tough decision, but I felt like the savings justify themselves. Siva, do you want to show the stats now? Or
Yeah, I think we've
coming
got
back to it?
so some stats on Robertson, right? Maybe just to explain what's on the screen here. So these are the stats for defenders between game week 20 to 38, so second half of the season. And as you say, Sam, Robertson did significantly outperform Trent in the second half of the season.
Yeah. So, he's cheaper, but I expect him to not necessarily outperform, but at least keep pace with Trent. So it's worth the savings for me. Just to recap, in the second half of last season, Robertson had 117 points, as you can see from the graphic there. Trent is all the way down at 82. Now, the underlying stats for Trent suggests that he underperformed. But, Robertson was first for defenders, 5th overall, had more points than Salah, Mane, Cancelo, and all the other 8 million midfielders. So it's a no-brainer to me. I've went with Robertson. Now, to go back to the team structure, I've went with only one premium defender. Now, this was a tough decision to make. Originally, when I first made the draft, I went big at the back. Listeners of our podcast will know last year that we were very, very hot on being big at the back, right? I still feel the same way over the course of a season. However, after taking a look at their preseason, taking a look at some stats, I realized that maybe to start off, you go big at the front first and then slowly move the funds towards the back. There are reasons for this. First of all, I do think that teams take time to build up that defensive cohesion, right? Can you pull up the stats for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a post on Reddit. I thought about it and then I saw the post on Reddit, so I thought, we can just flash it up here. So you can see this is comparing the XGC over the last season, comparing the opening 6 to the rest of the season. So first 6 game weeks versus 7 to 38. And you can see almost all of it, you can see that the XGC improves. Except for City last year, which was, I don't know what's up with that, 213 XGC. That's insane, right? Minutes per XGC. So
Yeah, just
that's
to
an
explain,
anomaly.
right?
But
for
everyone
people-
else got better.
Sorry, Sam. I thought maybe explain for people who aren't familiar with XGC,
Yeah.
right? So that's XG conceded. So not goals conceded even, just XG conceded. And City's XGC, as you say, 213 minutes. That's ridiculous. That means they went entire games just not conceding any chances at all.
Yeah, pretty much they were incredible at the start of last season. But I do believe it's sort of an anomaly, right? But you can see in other seasons, almost every single team got better as the season progressed, except for United, but let's not talk about that. Yeah, Siva, I don't know, do you have the other graph, the table? Is it there?
I don't think I have anything else, Sam. You'll have to make do with this.
Alright, no worries. I'll just mention it then. So what I did was I checked for the top 2 teams, right? I went for only City and Liverpool in the past 4 seasons. How many clean sheets did they keep in the first 8 game weeks? So I split it the first 4 and then the next 4 and compared with the middle of the season. Now middle of the season is kind of vague. What I did is I took the clean sheets from January, the first game in January after New Year's, right? Because New Year's there's always that congestion, so a lot of rotation, goals might be more considered. But after that, it's kind of business as usual. So 8 game weeks there. And aside from last year, in which both City and Liverpool kind of opened the season quite strongly. City had 6 clean sheets in the first 8 games, Liverpool had 5. And then pretty much the same in the middle of the season. But in every other season, you can see there is a clear trend that they keep more clean sheets in the middle of the season. So, looking at all this, and looking at the preseason as well, I mean, City, not all their defenders have joined them in preseason, right? Diaz had some niggles here and there, Stones couldn't join them. So they didn't really have a full, month or so to prepare to put the team together. Whereas Liverpool didn't have that problem, which is why I'm okay with going in for a premium Liverpool defender. Not so much for City, and not so much for the rest either. So I've decided to move the funds up front, keep it cheap at the back.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the logic there. I wanted to actually just flag up this chart we have here from FPL Fraser, which sort of reflects the quality of defenses, right? And also attack. And you can go follow him on Twitter. It's a really good chart, which I thought sort of illustrates the kind of defenses we're looking to target. Now, if you look at the top right hand of the graph, you see City and Liverpool just, way above any other team. So that's good attack and good defense. And then you look closer down, so somebody like a Brighton, they're above that middle line, which means it's a good defense. The attack's, not as good, which is why it's all the way to the left. So Sanchez, for example, Sam, you've picked him. That's a Brighton keeper. Spurs, definitely the numbers improved after Conte came in, and that's why they're the third best team effectively in stats. Arsenal there, Chelsea there. So I think if you're looking for defenders, and that's why I'm a little surprised by Ait Nouri, Sam, featuring in your draft, because Wolves are right smack at the bottom. Bad defense, bad attack. But I'm guessing that's because you think it was just injuries and they should... they've signed Nathan Collins from Burnley, so maybe they get better now?
Yeah, I think if you remember in the first half of the season, Wolves were really strong defensively. Now, towards the end of the season, yes, it got kind of bad. there were injuries, there were some other factors. Could be the players' motivation themselves, whatever it may be. I think they have good fixtures to start, so as good a place as any. Although, like I said, the kind of placeholders for value, so Ait Nouri could be some other 4.5 defenders. It could be Kufal from West Ham. It could be, Botman, right? New Newcastle defender. Although I already have Trippier, but I'm just saying it could be James Justin. It could be someone. I'll make my final decision as we get closer to the season, as we have more information.
Yeah, but I think this chart's really illustrative of just why so many people are focusing. And I think, Sam, you'd agree with me. You want to try and get as many City and Liverpool players into your draft as you can, allowing for your structure.
Yeah, definitely. City a bit harder though. Liverpool kind of straightforward. You know who's gonna play. It's City that is rotation.
And so since you mentioned City and rotation, let me take you to your midfield, right? So you had Bailey, Salah, Sancho, De Bruyne. Okay, Bailey, no explanation needed. If you've been watching preseason, you saw him come on against United and tear them apart. Gerrard has been speaking very positively of him. So I think at 5 million, it's a gamble, but it's a worthwhile gamble based on what he's done previously. Salah captaincy. Look, we're not going to really explain why we have Salah. Salah's been good for years, right? So I don't think you need to explain it.
Yeah. I just want to throw out a quick stat, right? Because I saw on Twitter we did get a lot of people actually saying, is Salah really essential? Because, I can have Son instead. Do I really want to pay extra for Salah? There seems to be a lot of questions for that. Now, if you were listeners of last year, I jumped off the Salah train early and it worked out really well for me. So no bias here, but these are the stats for Salah. So the past 5 years, right, he's been in Liverpool for 5 years. The first year he joined, 17-18 against Watford, game week 1, 1 goal. 18-19 season against West Ham, another goal, 1 goal. 19-20 season against Norwich, 1 goal, 1 assist. 20-21 season against Leeds, 3 goals, a hat-trick. Last year against Norwich again, prayers for Norwich. 1 goal, 2 assists. So, come on, he is the standout captain for game week 1. Now, is it coincidence? Does it have relevance? I don't know. But I think from Klopp's comments, he said that, Salah is fully fit when he joins. He's just like some kind of beast, some kind of machine. And maybe that has an effect, as teams are still working out their defensive structure, as players are still coming into not really 100% fitness, but a fully fit Salah against those defenders. Maybe that's why he does so well in the first few weeks.
It's
so to me, you have to start with Salah, man. Have to.
Yeah, and actually people will say, oh, it's just coincidental, it's game week 1. But actually, if you think about it, right, these are all promoted teams by and large. And in promoted teams, now especially with Fulham this season, there's been some upheaval. They are buying a new keeper. I think they're buying Bernd Leno from Arsenal. They've bought a new right back, Kevin Mbabu from Wolfsburg. They are looking for a new centre back because their current centre back pairing includes a 34-year-old American, Tim Ream, who's probably wasn't good enough for the Premier League about 5 years ago. So you got a lot of these promoted teams he's facing on game week 1, and they are by definition in a state of flux. So maybe it does make sense that he scores on game week 1. It's not just like an anomaly. I think you've got... Okay, Sancho, we'll come to Sancho. I want to talk about De Bruyne because you spoke about rotation and City, right? So you've gone for Kevin De Bruyne, I assume, based on what? The fact that he had an amazing second half of the season, and also perhaps you can explain why you have KDB and not Erling Haaland.
Okay, let's start with the cons, I guess, or the worries that people have about De Bruyne. I think the number one thing that people put against having De Bruyne is that his overperformance last year. Now, I did not put up the stats, Siva.
Sam,
but
yes, but I have the stats here, so that's okay. So I can tell you that in underlying stats, and luckily we have a chart here, right? Salah and Son were some way ahead of De Bruyne in terms of both XG and XA. And I think KDB overperformed his XG by about 7 goals. So he had scored 15 from an XG of 7. I think you've seen that stat everywhere because everybody's using it to justify going without him.
Correct. And XG of 6.4 actually. So 15 goals from 6.4 XG. big overperformance.
Yep.
Now, historically, he kind of fluctuates between underperformance and overperformance, right? But I don't want to talk so much about XP because I feel that it doesn't have that much bearing on the new season because his role has changed. Now, we've seen it in preseason, in the first few games, and we can confirm it when Community Shield comes around next week. No, this weekend? Wait, when is Community Shield?
This weekend, mate.
This weekend, right? Yeah, okay. Sorry, I lost track of time. This weekend. So, I wouldn't call it stealing, but I feel like these guys put it, in words better than I can. So, and it's the same observation I made watching the games. You can see right here. So FPL Motley Baronet. So in his notes, he writes that in possession, KDB played quite high up along Haaland. Now dropped off to collect passes, that's alright, that he is the best distributor in the team. It makes sense. In possession, it was almost like a 4-2-4, meaning Haaland is almost, KDB is almost playing like a support striker. You can see it in FPL Fraser's analysis, same thing, KDB joins Haaland up top, 4-4-2. You can see it even in the earlier game where against Club America where he scored 2 goals. He's getting into the box. Grealish is pulling teams wide, or Cancelo is pulling the defense wide. Haaland is making his run. They are marking him. KDB is finding space and getting into the box. So to me, this points is really positive signs for De Bruyne. I'm quite hot on him this season, and definitely, out of all their assets, I think he's the most nailed because he is the best player in City right now. Pep sees that. He knows Pep's system really well. Pep trusts him. KDB is it for me. Now, why not Haaland? We have that other... I'll pull out the graphic. The minutes played graphic. Yeah, this is the one. New signings under Pep. Now, Pep has a track record. These are all of his attacking signings that he's made since he's joined City. And you can see in every single one of them, their minutes drop. Now, the column season before, that's the season before they joined City. Their first season under Pep, minutes drop, matches started drop. Second season, it jumps up, right? Because once they've learned the system, once they've learned the runs that, not the runs that they want to make, but the runs that Pep wants them to make. The positioning, everything that Pep's on. Once they can do exactly what he wants, then they get to start. There are some caveats here and there. So like in Grealish's case, doesn't look like it changed much, but actually in the year before, he had quite a bad injury. If it wasn't for that, easily he would have played every single game, 32 matches, 30 plus matches. And then similarly last year, I think Pep had to trust him more because there were quite a lot of injuries in the City team itself among their attackers. So there were instances where Grealish was the only available left winger, so he had to start. But I think if Pep had a chance, he wouldn't have started Grealish so much because we could see he wasn't so effective in the first half of the season. It was only up to the second half where, he was playing much better. So this year I do expect Grealish to start more matches. I am expecting a good season for Grealish. At the same time, I am expecting Haaland's minute to be severely diminished this season, and to me, I'd rather go KDB over Haaland. If Haaland bangs, well, it's good news for KDB as well because I'm sure he'll be providing many of those assists.
Yeah, I think those are all fair points. Just to explain for those who may not be watching the video, what we have here is a chart of minutes for City attackers in the season prior to when they joined City, and then their first 2 seasons under Pep. And as Sam has explained, as a rule, everybody gets less minutes than they did at their previous club, and the minutes then increase in the second season. Now, presumably that's why a lot of people are excited about Grealish, Sam. My issue with going for Grealish is that surely, even at his best, right, you look at this, right, Mahrez is 1944. Mahrez's minutes are 1944, bearing in mind that the maximum minutes you can play a season is about 3,200. And Mahrez was fit for the entirety of last season. So, although you didn't pick Grealish, this is a point I thought I wanted to address. I actually have some issues with Grealish as a pick because I feel like you need to get really lucky for it to work, because if you miss a run, or if he for some reason is benched in game week 2, which is not unlikely, right? He might start game week 1, which you don't really want him for against West Ham, but game week 2 against Bournemouth, that's why you want him. He might get benched there, which is exactly what happened last season with Mahrez. Everybody had him for game week 1, and then he was benched for game week 2 against Norwich.
Yeah, I do feel that a lot of people fall into this trap of thinking that their game week 1 team is going to be permanent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they think, oh, if I don't pick Grealish now, I'm going to lose out on him. It's not like that. You can make transfers every week. If he does bang and shows well, bring him in later on. But your game week 1 team is all about picking the safest possible team that you can. In my opinion, anyway. Try to get as many safe starters because that's what you want. You want stability in the first few weeks before you move on. You don't want a big disaster with like 3-4 players in your team not starting at all. Preseason was a lie. They're shit right now. So yeah, so go as safe as you can, in my opinion.
Okay. So, did we have anything else to cover? We've already come to my draft because I think Kane and Jesus, do you really want to explain? I mean, Jesus, look, we're not going to explain Jesus. Everybody has Jesus. You should get Jesus. He's 8 million and he plays for the best team in the country. Enough. Kane, Sam.
And he looks like he'll be the talisman of the team. Sorry, Siva. But I just want to add that.
I fully agree.
Focal point at 8 mil.
Focal point at 8 mil. They've underpriced him. Clearly, they priced him thinking he'd stay at City. So 8 mil is a bargain. When you look at some of the assets who are being priced at 9 and 10, Sterling is 10, Darwin Núñez is 9, Jesus for 8 is great value. Kane over Son, Sam, maybe just briefly explain why Kane is there over Son.
Okay, I'm not even convinced myself, so I'm flip-flopping like multiple times a day. Kane versus Son, Son or Kane, Kane or Son. Right now it's purely because I needed a 0.5. Now I may find that 0.5 somewhere, maybe drop one of my 4.5 defenders to Neco Williams, get the extra 0.5 and move up my 4.5 midfielder to Son. There are pros and cons, I guess. Son ended the season so strongly, massive FOMO starting without Son. But at the same time, if you go Kane, you do have a playing 4.5 midfielder. Whereas if you go for Son, your 4.5 striker is not going to give you any points at all. So pros and cons, I guess, and I think I will be switching between the two right after deadline, so I can't really say for certain.
Okay, I think that's fair. I wouldn't be able to decide between the two, and the 0.5 saving just makes it nicer. I think we've covered all the aspects on City and your team, Sam. So if you don't mind, let's come to my draft, right? So I'll just read out my team. It's Edison in goal, Cancelo, Trent, James, Robertson, Perisic, Neto, Salah, Martinelli, Haaland, and Jesus. So Sam, you mentioned at the start of the pod, right, the video, that we were very big on big at the back at the start of last season, and actually throughout last season, just in general, defensive double-ups and so on. And I think big at the back still holds true. And I feel like the reason why you're not seeing it as many templates as you would previously, a lot of people are moving away, like yourself. I think it's just because as time has progressed, it just looks really inviting to have 3 premiums. It's doable in a way that it wasn't last season. You couldn't really fit Lukaku, Ronaldo. Looking back, it was really bad if you fit both of them in a team. But you would struggle to make it work into a team. Whereas this season, you could, as you've shown us, have a very viable, decent team while carrying KDB, Salah and Kane, for example. I think, though, and let me explain why I've gone big at the back by looking at the points. From the back end of last season, I could have taken the whole season, but it's just easy. I wanted a smaller time frame, right? So if you look, I've got a chart here of total points between Game Week 20 to Game Week 38. And at the top, Son and Kane, which shows the Conte effect. Son at 160, Kane at 140, De Bruyne third or 130. You don't see another premium asset all the way down, not in the top 10. You have to go to Salah at 95. He had a really poor second half of the season. Mane at 94, Ronaldo at 91. The rest of the people mentioned here are all sub 10 mil. And so for me, when I see a 3 premium team, what I see is sort of like an imperfect understanding of where points come from, right? Because in FPL, your goal is not to buy players, right? It's not to buy stars. It's to buy points. And to get points, you need to have, a mixture of assets. And so I've done a calculation here, right? If you had Son, KDB, and Salah for this period, I think that's a fair assumption. You'd have gone with 3 premiums. They would have got you 400 points for 37 million. If you had Robertson, Laporte, Cancelo, Saka, and Bowen for 36.5 million, so that's less, you have 511 points. That's just an example I took. So it's basically Moneyball, Sam. That's what it is, right? You're not buying premiums, you're not buying stars, you're buying points. And, if I say this, people don't believe me, but this is what you should do. And it sounds very unattractive. Why would I have 5 defenders? But I think with a 5 at the back, you can do this. And because they're wing backs, they get attacking returns, they get defensive clean sheets. You see, a lot of the players here are defenders. Liverpool defense and Man City defense are all included here. So that's why I think you go big at the back to start off.
Okay. I mean, I like big at the back. Always been a fan. For me, it's just this year. I think not to start with, but probably by game week 8, I'm probably having a full-on premium defense. Just my opinion is that I'll gradually move on towards it once the team starts to show that yes, they have that defensive understanding now. They look solid.
Yeah, and that's the gamble I'm taking. I'm going against the stat that you showed that teams progressively get better at defense. Now, the reason I'm gambling against that is because I feel both Liverpool and City haven't, maybe 1 or 2 injuries here and there, but they've kept the spine of their team. And in City's case, I'd say they've made it better because they've sold Fernandinho and brought in Calvin Phillips, younger, fitter. So I feel like both of these teams will be just that solid to start off, and their fixtures are so good. And these guys play week in, week out. People like Cancelo will always show up. Whereas the chances of you go for a midfielder or you go, not De Bruyne here, but somebody like, actually to be honest, even with De Bruyne, with 5 subs, he may not get the full 90. A lot of times I expect midfielders to be subbed off before the 90. And defenders being subbed off before the 90, sure, there's a gamble if they're subbed off before 60, but as long as it's after 60 minutes with the clean sheet, you don't really care.
Yeah. True.
I expected more protests, Sam. I was very prepared for this. I'm very disappointed. Rest of the team: Neto, Salah, Martinelli, Haaland, Jesus. Is there anything here you want to question, Sam? Any choices here you're worried about?
I'm worried about Neto. With the injury on Jimenez, are you not worried about that?
I'm worried in the sense that, yes, I think maybe it could have an effect. Oops, I've gone all over the place here. It could have an effect, sure. But I think if I don't go Neto, I'll go to Leon Bailey. So I'm not too concerned.
Okay, what about Martinelli? You think his minutes are secured? I heard ESR is coming back to training.
Yeah, so everybody asks Arsenal fans about Martinelli, and the honest truth is no one knows if he's going to start every game. My guess is he won't start every single game, but he's clearly the first choice, even if he's not nailed. And I think, to be very honest with you, this season 5 subs is going to throw everybody for a loop because every manager is going to use them, especially in the attacking areas. When you're chasing for a goal or you want to score a second goal, you're going to change your strikers. And that's going to happen regardless of your price point. Pep's not going to say, I've got a 12 million striker, I'll keep him on the pitch. No, he's going to take him off and bring on somebody else. So Martinelli at 6 million is as
surprisingly though. Sorry, Siva. But surprisingly though, when we had 5 subs during what's it called? Project Restart.
Yeah.
Pep barely used his 5 subs. I don't have the stats on that, but I remember it happening all the time. Like Pep was just, to him, he rather kind of let them play the whole 90 and then rotate with another player to play the next game's 90 rather than get him play 60 and then the other guy plays 30 kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was really weird. I remember there were times where he stuck with 3 subs, like really strictly, in many of the games.
I think also...
But you see, Pep has the luxury of doing that, where he can sub in another player in that next game and have the exact same result they're going to win. Whereas not all the teams have that luxury.
That's true. I mean, he's operating from a position of strength. I think it's also important to remember that Project Restart, I mean, I looked at the stats as well, and I know Klopp made, I think, the second highest number of substitutions at that time. But Project Restart was in a different time period. It was a lot of compressed games. People were coming back from COVID. And maybe now, with this is a normal season, maybe the 5 subs rule will just be used not so sparingly. Maybe people will make it as part of the game because it's over a normal season. You're looking at midweek fixtures and so on. So I think we will see more substitutions than we are prepared for. And I think a lot of these assets, even the guys in my team, who we think are nailed, may not be as safe as they once were. Which is why again, another reason why I'm gambling on big at the back while there are risks, in the hope that at least even if my minutes get cut short, I still get some points before they come off the pitch. And that's why all the defenders have gone for attacking defenders in the hope they get attacking returns. I think it's not much more to cover on my team. It's quite template in that sense. I thought we'd come to some questions here. So Sancho, Sam, I thought you'd explain. We had a question here from Joseph Melvin. Where would you rank Sancho among 7 to 8 million mids?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't talk about Sancho just now, right?
Yeah.
So, good timing for the question. I really like Sancho. I think the way United have played this season, you can clearly see he's going to be our talisman. You know, most of the attacks flow through him. He is on the right, he's on the left, he's assisting, he's crossing, he's getting in the box. I think Sancho at 7.5 is going to be great. I'm still not convinced by United's defense, which is why I don't have Dalot. But attacking wise, yeah, I really like Sancho. I actually have him over almost all the 8 mil mids.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how highly I rank him. So,
I think for United,
with the exception of maybe Saka,
yeah, go ahead.
with the exception of Saka, however, with Jesus, you don't really need to double up with Saka as well.
All right.
So,
And in terms, exactly. So the question of debate between Saka and Jesus, I've always favoured going for the guy playing closer to goal. But Saka does get close. He does, even in pre-season, he's been scoring. Scored a tap-in against Everton, again in pre-season. Scored against Chelsea. I think this is a boring answer, but ownership for Jesus is insane. He's the most owned asset in FPL. And you may not, I mean, Sam and I disagree about ownership a lot, but I think you want to protect yourself. If Jesus scores a hat-trick on game week 1, you really don't want to be starting with that kind of issue over your head.
okay.
Vardy boys, fave
Next
budget, fave budget picks to enable a premium. So I mean, we said Leon Bailey, Sam, Andreas Pereira, who looks okay. He's taking some corners for Fulham at 4.5.
As a United fan, I don't rate Andreas Pereira at all. When the transfer happened, I told Siva, I won't be surprised if 10 games into the season, he's been playing so bad that they drop him entirely. You know, just because he comes from a big club and he's playing for a so-called smaller club does not make his place nil. So, I don't know, I just don't... I'm not interested in Andreas Pereira at all.
Okay.
Yeah, but other than that, there's Neto, there is... who else do you have? In defense, there is...
Well,
Neco Williams.
Neco Williams.
Looks like he's
the
a
only
starter.
4.0, I think, Neco Williams.
Yeah. Yeah. For now. So I think that's about it, right? In terms of budget picks, not many to choose from this year. Well, at least not many have emerged yet. Usually the budget picks kind of come out from nowhere as the season progresses, So
Yeah, that's important to remember, that you're not building a squad for the whole season. You're building until your first wild card. So you can relax if there's not that many options. They will come.
Yep.
Pedro FPL, steer away from Chelsea defense while they sort out the centre-back situation. Now, I included Reece James in my draft, so I think I'll take this. I was initially very bullish on going triple Chelsea with Mendy and Chilwell. I think I've seen enough to know that individually, Chilwell still recovering from his injury. He's being eased in. Mendy, I don't think I need to double up on their defense. But Reece James, I mean, and I think this is a psychological thing, Sam, right? We don't pick defenders because we're worried that they may concede a goal. But these are all, they're not defenders, right? They're midfielders who get clean sheet points, let's be honest. Reece James plays so high up the pitch. Trent, Robertson, these are just midfielders, right?
Yeah. I think to start though, I would understand if you want to stay clear. You know, it's totally new centre backs and things like that. May take some time, but like Siva said, if you're confident that their attacking returns will be able to compensate for the lack of clean sheets, then go for it.
And finally, Sam, a question here from Nigel, a long-time listener and the winner of our first mini league, 2 seasons ago. He says, any takeaway from previous seasons, lessons learned that you would take into this season, and how is fatherhood? Now, Sam, I just became a father. You were already a father before we started this pod. I will say that it has not helped my FPL decisions. It's made me a lot more impulsive, especially when I'm rushing to a deadline and I need to finalize the team before the team news is out because of the kid. But takeaway from previous season, Sam, what have you taken away from last season? You finished really strongly, top 40k. Right at the end, you sort of made up 100k by captaining KDB for 60 points. What has that taught you?
Captain KDB. That's what it taught me. I'm joking. Don't be afraid of EU, I guess, because I managed to jump rank last year. Now, it may be luck, it may be not, I don't know. But because I jumped off Salah early, I saw this. I would say, I could see like his form was not doing so well. Now, the underlying stats, yes, looks good, but when you watch the games, you can kind of see something has changed a bit in him. So, I jumped off and it worked really well for me. May not have worked in other seasons, but my takeaway is just, don't care about EO so much and just make the decisions, the informed decisions, not just, bad decisions, but, look at the stats, look at the way they play, use the eye test, and then make your own decision. Don't be so caught up with EO. That's my lesson.
I think a valuable one. And I don't have anything else, Sam. So, we'll probably do a Game Week 1 preview next week. But anything else from you, Sam?
No, that's it. So, we'll see you all for our pod next week, guys.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this, any feedback, if you didn't like it, who knows, if you disagreed with something Sam said, like buying Sancho because he thinks he's good, when obviously the guy you get from United is Tony Martial, right, with his Ballon d'Or clause and Ronaldo being forced out. But I think that's all from me. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Oh, this is Banger.